Hello everyone, welcome to the third edition of the RVKK Feminist Film Festival. I will read some words now. Welcome all of you, welcome all these beautiful, amazing directors we have today. This year, due to the pandemic, we were forced to split the festival into two parts because screening the movies selected this year was not a possibility. Instead of just standing there with our arms crossed, we decided to create a conversations edition as the first part of the festival, and then later this year screen the movies as the second part. We feel that filmmaking is about spending time together, sharing ideas, feelings, moments, and trying to overcome loneliness, or at least live it in a more beautiful way. We want to thank the Nordic House for getting into this crazy adventure with us during these difficult times. Thank you for your trust. And I actually want to add that back in the 70s, the first feminist movement in Iceland, called the Red Stockings, used to gather in the basement of this place, so it's a huge honor to be here. This festival is also about minorities, about the views that are not yet as prevalent and abundant as they should be, and that are necessary to expand our vision of the world. Because in the end, that is what cinema is, visions of the world. Last but not least, we would like to dedicate these conversations to all of the stories that couldn't be or that have not yet come to be, either due to lack of funding or due to postponed professions in order to raise children, or whatever the circumstance may be that has deprived us of more stories, of more poetry. Even though she prefers to stay behind the camera, the place where the majority of us might probably prefer to be, I would like to thank the creator of all this, Lea Aibars. So, tack fyrir Lea for this. And hi, how are you feeling?
Well.
Are we nervous?
Yes, we are.
This is not a usual, I mean, it is, but we might probably prefer being behind. So I would like to introduce all of you, and then I would like all of you to perhaps tell a little bit of how you began in this world. So Helga, Rakel, Rafnsdóttir from Iceland, Ísold, Uggadóttir from Iceland as well, Natalia Abramovic from Serbia, Uisenma, Borchu from Mongolia and Germany, and Magnea, Björk, Valdimarsdóttir, also from Iceland. So this is supposed to be a conversation. I'm not going to make direct questions because I want this to be something we conversate, like if directors just met inside a room and start discussing about things, about life, about how do we see things, how do we create. So it's a more philosophical, perhaps, conversation. So I don't know if somebody of you might probably want to begin how you started, telling how you started.
Helga? I just woke up. Well, I can, yeah, sure. I think, I had a mother who studied photography and filmmaking, and so it's always been she was like a single mom and moved a lot, and I think it was kind of natural for me always to look through the lens somehow, and I've always thought in frames and scenes and stories, and always had a great need to tell stories. And somehow, I don't know what happened. At 15, I just stopped taking photographs, and I just started doing acting, which was great. Especially, I mean, it's great to have that experience later on. And it took me a while to search. I studied a lot of different things, and then 15 years later, by accident, I kind of made a documentary that went really well, and I felt really at home. Like finally I felt I had found my place, and since then I've just been there on and off with bringing up children, of course. Yeah, that's kind of the short version.
Ísold, thank you, Helga.
Yes, I've told this story before. I feel like I generally tell it for like an hour, so I'm trying to be brief in some way, which is not my forte. Let's see. Well, I've always been interested in film, kind of, and I remember. I think at some point, as a young teenager, when I realized that there are people who make films. They don't just appear on television. They don't just appear in the movie theater. It's actually a profession, and I don't feel like it was always clear to me that there were people who sat there, wrote a script, and thought about frames and scenes. And there was a moment when I was probably around 11 years old when classmates of mine, the boys, made a short film that was screened for the class and for the parents. And I remember being so impressed, but also jealous that I hadn't been a part of this process of making a film. And at some point, my family acquired a small video camera, and this kind of was a breakthrough moment for me, like to have the technology, because this is before iPhones. This is before you have now everybody has a camera in their pockets. But this was a time when it was a really big deal. A video camera was a big deal to have. And so first, having this in my hands at maybe age 15, 16, I just documented everything around me. My sister, who was 12 years younger, just the flowers, the bookshelf, anything, or I would, later when I could drive, I would bring the camera, drive around town, put on some dramatic classical music and create little moments, little scenes. And because I never knew that I would be able to edit this in post-production, so I was always editing in camera, like deciding the soundtrack, in camera. And I was kind of looking for ways to do this somehow. And when I was maybe age 20, after what we call mentaskóli here, kind of junior college or whatever you want to call it, or high school, where, by the way, they had a film club or a video club, but it was only boys, and there was kind of a boys club, and it didn't even occur to me to apply or try to be engaged in this. It was just not my scene, and so there was never really a community to have an outlet for this passion. But later on, there was something. I took kind of a video class called myndbandagerð. It was part of something called Iðntæknistofnun, which was more kind of. It wasn't as an art thing. It was more of a kind of industry, like an industrial, like how to make an industrial video or something. But it was at least like a camera, learn how to, choose frames, and then there was this one big editing machine, and it was like it was kind of the holy grail of like, this is where you put it together. And I was most excited about that area because this is where it really becomes something. But anyway, so then 1 year later, I was 21. I think I saw advertised something called the Icelandic Film School, Kvikmyndaskóli Íslands, which then was an evening class, maybe 2 or 3 hours an evening for maybe 3 months. And I applied to this, and it was kind of like, wow, this is my future. I was like, now I have found my place. But it was just 1 semester. And then I continued. Anyway, so
how old were you at that time?
I'm 21 there, because in Iceland you couldn't study film at a university level, which now is changing finally, 100 years later. But so, and this is also in the early days of the internet. The internet is kind of like nobody really uses it at this point, not at least in my community. And so. Google didn't exist. You didn't Google. You did web crawler, but it was just kind of, it feels so ancient. But anyway, I was aware of film schools, and I had dreams of going there, but somehow it seemed complicated and far away, and I had to do a BA degree first. So I eventually studied humanities here in the University of Iceland, knowing that I was eventually going to do this somehow, in some way, but I didn't know exactly how. So, but I was always doing something, but it was never like a proper film. It was just little moments, little pieces, documentations. And, but I don't think you want to spend the entire hour talking about how I made a film, but it took a while, and you know, I also had to find also the self-esteem to feel confident about writing a script, because that to me was the most scary part, was how do you write a script? But eventually I studied film, and I graduated from Columbia University after another degree in something else, which is maybe this female tendency to kind of to not go all in, to be like, I'm going to be safe, I'm going to know how to edit, I'm going to know how to do multimedia and this and all this, and always have something to fall back on. But it was in my 30s that I finally decided, like, this is going to be what I do for a living. But I did, in my heart, I kind of knew it when I was like age 10. But I was 30-something when I was like, okay, actually, I will do this. So here we are.
Natalia, do you want to?
Yes. Yes, my name is Natalia Abramovic. I'm from Serbia. Well, I was very creative while I was a child, and I did lots of things, like I don't know, I write essays and tried to make a TV show when I was 5th grade, and also like doing some plays for my dolls, and after that I also like wrote poems, and I did some acting while I was a senior year abroad. And when I come back to Serbia, I wanted to be an actress, but I didn't have time to prepare for that, and I realized that directing is my thing, because I also paint. I'm a painter also too, so I can put all my talents in this. Yes. And I'm here with my first feature, the Spring Poem. It's an autobiographical story that I had to do. Before that, I was doing documentaries at my job, and after my father's death, I had a really emotional period of time, and like in those like 40 days after his death, when in Serbia, like we say, the spirit of deceased is going between two worlds, and he's still here, and I could like feel him. I had a butterfly that follows me all the time, and I feel it like that was him. And also in my movie I have a butterfly that is a symbol of my father's soul. And also in those 40 days, I also trying to find my place between worlds, and to settle down. And after that period, I just wanted to write it all down, and to look at that, what I experienced on the different level, and from other view. I mean, to maybe see in myself what I couldn't see, you know, while all happening. So, yeah, and yeah.
All right. Yeah, it was quite emotional what you was just talking about. And yes, I'm Uisenma, and I'm actually from Mongolia, but living since a very long time in Germany. And I think I'm a person who started with writing, and I am still writing. I guess that was my way to develop myself into the direction of film generally. And so my father was always the one who was pushing me into poems and tried to let me, to find my own expression with words, and I think it was working very good. And then I think with 22 I realized, I heard of a film school in Munich, and I thought, all right, I could maybe go to this school and could apply myself there. And before that I was more into journalism, and I thought to myself, all right, there is much more that you want to write, and you need to express. Maybe you can find yourself there. And I think to express myself visually is working very well. And so I was digging into this field of expression and my feelings, and I thought to myself, I can really open up myself. And before that, I was always watching a lot of movies and films, but I never could have imagined to make a movie by myself till I was, 21, 22 or something. And until now, words and books and music is for me my first art. You cannot run away from this, and I think I get my first impression from these arts. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Magnea. It was very nice to listen to all of you, and I remember things like when I was young, I started writing poetry a lot, and just remembering the video club that I just rented all the films, and my older siblings, they rented all the videos, and I could watch a lot of films growing up. And then also the boys' video club reminded me of a chess club, only boys I was in, and I got fired from that club because I won all the boys at chess. The teacher said, I found a club for girls for you, that you can take 3 buses and you can join the, So I had to go from one suburb to another to join a girls' chess club. So I just quit playing chess. And a year later, I got depressed at 13 after being a happy child, and I was playing Jesus, and in a theater course, and my father pointed me to that direction, and after that, I just found myself in theater, and I became an actress. And at 13, I decided to be an actress and a tourist guide. And that was what I became. I just, for 20 years, okay, I'll do that, and I did it. And then my determination brought me to the financial crisis, where I had studied acting and had been teaching theater a lot. Went to the Arts Academy of Iceland again to study theater teaching, and I was teaching in a multicultural school in the city center, and I had Tuesday mornings off, and I borrowed a really tiny camera and started making a film about a street in the city center, because there was a man that had died that I was going to make a documentary about, an alcoholic, and he always hung around at the streets, and it developed into another idea, which brought me into being very passionate about filming. And I was many times walking with my child in the one hand and filming in the other hand, just like, give mother 10 more minutes to film, just like, please. And then I just started making short films about outsiders of society. This is my passion. The people you don't regularly notice, but have so interesting stories to tell. And then I moved to France and studied filmmaking, and here I am. I don't know. I think I will continue when I have time and money. You know, you also have to make a living if you're a single mom, but I think if you're determined to go on, like, I think it's possible in a way. You just have to find your way somehow. That's it.
Tack. It's interesting. I always like to hear like everybody's story, because they are so different between each other. Like there's not a fixed path or journey to do. So to me, that's something I always look in interviews of the directors I like, to hear how they started. And apparently we all started like going around the cinema thing, but never like actually going directly to it. So that's interesting. It's also interesting that not everybody here studied cinema. Like that's also interesting. And something that is common in all of you is that you are all mothers. You all have kids. And I was wondering, I would like to, perhaps it's a controversial question, but I would like to put into the table the discussion about raising two kids, both raising movies and both raising kids. If anyone wants to say something about it.
I think maybe first I love the image of you traveling 3 buses to go to the girls' chess club. It's like, for me it was like, oh my God, it's like, you know, I think 90% of women who want to do filmmaking probably have to take these 3 buses, while the boys just get to stay like in the local classroom, you know. And I really love that image, it's beautiful. But the thing is that because they don't take the 3 buses, they miss the magic of the journey, and they don't have that deep and thorough experience, which is precious. And I think we really need to be less afraid of speaking up about our realities. And I think in a way, I'm always so happy when I see a film that expresses this reality in a thorough way and in a brave way, because I think we are still, I'm not sure we know how to do it. I love your films. They do, like your first film really does it. It's beautiful. Mama, mama, mama. And I really like these kind of films. But that's of course another subject. Sorry, I'm like going away from your question.
No. The idea is that we kind of like.
It can be a flow. Yeah. So, but I really think this is something that we need to embrace and dive into, and just not be afraid. Like because you did these interviews like before coming here, and then when you asked like what do you want to say to a younger you. And I've never realized this before, but like the most important phrase is just, you are allowed, you are entitled. And I was also, after I spoke, I realized like, why didn't I do this earlier? Why didn't I realize? Because I didn't know I was allowed. I was working in a cinema from 15. I walked like, nobody at this age was working in the cinema, which is now Bioparadís, the local cinema. And I used to sneak into all the films. And it took me many years to realize and to somehow enter that, while all the boys in my like group of friends in high school were all in the video club, and you know, doing the film school and making films. And so it's very, I think it's very interesting that we don't realize that we are entitled and we are, you know, we are allowed, and we are allowed to tell all these stories. And I think also after I started making films, like because I'm like hoping to make my first fiction. I've made documentaries so far, but I really feel strongly there is still people, like society is not open to films about women's reality, you know, unless it's like quite superficial. And I think we are all experts in men growing up, you know, at different.
But in a way, you know, it's so full of like in art, in paintings, like the subjects, the characters that we see are usually women, you know, but they are not perhaps portrayed by women. So that's also something interesting, because we're actually seeing stories about women, but perhaps it's not really going to where it actually should go, you know? I don't know.
But it's understandable. Women are beautiful motives, amazing, and you know, but it's just a different way, and you know, not as objects, but as storytellers. Yeah. And we are storytellers from ancient history, and we really need to claim that back. And I think we are. A lot of things are changing. So, but I think, yeah, coming back to your question about filmmaking and children, I don't know. I think it's just patience and, you know, patience and love somehow. That's what it's. I don't know. That's the first words that came up to my mind. Like you have both. It's what gives you most pleasure. It's what is most demanding. You know, takes most patience. Somehow, I think those are similarities.
Yeah, because it takes a lot of patience to wait for funding, to wait, because sometimes you have an idea and that idea is very present in you, but then you get to actually shoot that idea like 3 years after that. So that's also something which is very...
And not only that, I think, I mean, you have an idea, and sometimes your idea is not that great, you know. When you start developing it, all these difficulties and you know, obstacles turn up, and you need to go to a different direction, or you need to follow the truth of your vision or your idea. And this is the same as with kids. You have this beautiful idea, like, oh my God, my kid is going to learn how to play the violin, and then she's going to do the ballet, but she's going to be a real feminist, she's never going to wear pink. And then she's like, you know, gets older, and she's like, you know, wearing pink and not wanting to do the violin, and, you know, and not wanting to get up in the morning and losing her stuff. And what are you going to do? You know, you have to love your child, and it's the same with the project. You have to follow the truth of that.
Accept the anarchy as well.
Absolutely.
Once you put it out, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I'm experiencing now, because I'm in this middle of this life of having a 5-month-old, which we're still kind of 4 months, but she's turning 5 next week, is like there's so many, I feel like I'm living in a film, and it feels like a very primitive, very kind of raw film, and so I find it very kind of artistically inspiring in a way, but incredibly exhausting at the same time. And but what I often think is like, all these scenes that I'm experiencing, so many other people have experienced them before me. Why aren't there a million films about this? That's my constant feeling, is like, this is a movie, and then that just emphasizes the reality that, you know, men have made most of the films. Therefore, this experience that I'm experiencing now hasn't been portrayed as much as I would have expected. And maybe the producers who produced at some point were like, breastfeeding, not such an interesting movie. Or, you know, these scenes or these moments or something. I mean, I don't know for a fact why that's not the case, but yeah, sometimes I'll experience a moment, I'm like, have I seen this in a movie? I don't think so, and if not, it's crazy that it hasn't, because there are so many children have been born already, so...
Totally. I was speaking with a friend of that, like, I don't know, 3 days ago, and when we had our little Skype meeting, we spoke a little bit about it. Yeah. But there's this friend, which is not a filmmaker at all, but she's just very insisting in saying, Sol, somebody should film this. because it's like living a horror story, a love story, a fantasy story, all at the same time.
And a farce.
And a farce.
Yeah, it's quite a farce.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. We are also friends, so I was having a coffee at her place the other day, and we were sitting at the table, a couple of friends, and I think we all saw the same amazingly funny, beautiful film. Like they were telling stories about their, lives the couple of last months, and I was like, what a shame! Why did I not write every single detail down?
Yeah.
And I'm sad now because my girls are quite big.
Yeah.
And I'm lost. I don't know what to do because they're so they're getting bigger. But but I have some diaries, and I was inspired by your stories to go back to the diaries and to read them and to look into all these beautiful moments. It's really,
Yeah, because all of a sudden you lose kind of control of your life, and somebody else dictates your life. So you could be, you're trapped in the middle of like downtown Reykjavik with maybe a screaming child. It's raining. You missed the bus, and then your breasts are out of control. There's so many things, and it's so primitive.
Start spraying milk and
and then all you want is like one coffee, and then you like take, and it's like it can turn into like an action film or a thriller. Like, can I leave the child for
even
4 minutes to go, or and then meanwhile, you know what I mean, and then. So there's so many, it's like a constant kind of thriller. Like, will I catch the bus with this baby carriage? Will the child, make this experience pleasant or not? And anyway, so there, and then if you breast pump, like all of a sudden you have this breast milk, and then it's like, oh my God, if you in slow motion, like the breast milk can like turn over, and you're like, oh my God. You know what I mean? There's just all these moments of like drama, like it's drama, and the problem is that you never have time to write anything down because you're just living it. You like have to remember, and then you forget everything.
Just have to use the phone.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think we as filmmakers have this little shelter, which is creation, and that everything that happens in life, we kind of like use it in a way,
Totally.
So we are all the time like saving things for later, but perhaps when it actually happens, when it's happening, you cannot do anything about it. It's just happening, and you're a spectator, and you need to stay there in order to then perhaps there will be a time in when that will become, I don't know, a movie or a book. But yes, it's important, I think, to have a little discipline in that way of perhaps a voice record or just writing something. I think it's important to record live, because that's, in my case, my main source of inspiration, even if I'm not writing about me, but it's like little like different forms of me, of myself, perhaps, because I think the most perhaps truthful thing with which we can work is our emotions or our experiences. So yes, okay.
I would like to come in with questions.
Okay, so we have questions.
So, Uisenma, I would like to start with you. When you develop a project, do you have a clear idea of the music you'd like to use? Do you have a process with that?
Yes, I work very much with music while writing the script. So if I don't have music and when I don't get into this mood, then I feel like, that I'm not moving really. And of course, I had some imaginations of music that I would actually like to use in the movie, but until now it wasn't really possible because of course, the money, low-budget movies that I did, and so I tried to, solve it another way. So my son is playing the music, he's playing the piano already, and I tried to tell him, and now he's already evolving to you know, someone who makes music maybe. And so I do have this special bond, of course, that he understands me very good and he likes what I like and he really dislikes movies and that I also don't like. And so I think that's a very nice development and something that, you know, that's a gift for me, I guess. And that's very special for me to think about music, yeah. And I hope one day when there's the money, you know, I could ask one of my very favorite French musicians, and I think with him it would be just amazing, yeah.
Obviously, here you're connecting with your son.
Yeah.
His music. Magnea, what about you with music?
Everything is coming back to me now, like things that I had forgotten. But like for my first films, my ex-partner, the father of my children, made the music for. He was like, I was studying, you know, Final Cut Pro, like pirate versions from my friend, and then he was making garage band music, and that was like hip hop beat related street music in a way, which was very fitting to my projects. So that was the way in there. But I was just going to add that when I was a child, just two things like child and mother, that when I was 4 or 5, I asked my mother, she was in front of this beauty counter, like 60s, putting on lipstick or something. And I asked my mother, like, I just got this overwhelming feeling like, oh, is this a film? Are we in a film set? Like, really, it was just mind-blowing. And I just felt like when I saw Truman Show later, like, I know the feeling. But it was just like, this is not reality. There's somebody watching us. Like, and then I forgot that my first film was about my first child. The film was called The Little Love Child because my cousin decided that that we should name her not Maria, but the first love child, the love child. And I made a film before getting to know to edit and like on a PC, not a Mac, not in Final Cut, just editing a 30-minute film about my child, and that was such a great experience just to like do it yourself, like I've always done, like filming and editing. Just do it yourself. Go get into it.
You film it yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, you did the camera.
Yeah.
And how old was your baby?
She was like 0 months to maybe 2, and it was a film that is lost now, but still, it's my first film, so
okay.
That was about my child, and yeah.
Okay.
I would like to hear from Natalia.
Yes, of course.
We had this question.
I'm sorry, I get nervous every time it's my turn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's I get nervous too. That's why I'm behind the camera. So, what I was asking them about is, when you develop a project, do you have a clear idea of the music you'd like to use? Do you have a process with music?
Okay. Can I just answer that question about children and the
Absolutely,
films?
like you want.
Yeah. Okay. My son Gavrilo, he's now 12 years old, and he plays himself in my movie, The Spring Poem. And he was really professional and very good, performance. And it was very nice that he could be on the set and to be also with me and to meet other actors and actresses and to feel that atmosphere. And also my ex-husband is also a very famous film director from Serbia, and he also had a really significant scene in his movie. So yeah, Gavrilo is enjoying to grow up in that artistic environment, and yeah. And now when I finished the second script for my second feature, he was so mad that I don't have a role for him, you know. So, yeah. And while he was young, I was just a mother to him, like, and when how he was older, I had more time, of course, to like do things, creative things that I mean, to work. I mean, yeah, to direct and everything, to write, and of course I can manage everything. I have my job at Film News at Serbia. It's film archive, like from 1940, I think, 6th. And we have all the footages like from Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, and our President Tito. And it's also like a lot of them are black and white because of that past years. And while I was doing documentaries there, I was really productive. I did like, I could make like 6 or 7 documentaries for a year. Also, I learned to edit, and also I write a script for everything. And for this movie, my first feature, I was so eager to make it. Because of that emotion that kept me, and I wanted to do it while it was fresh, and not like 5 years later when I don't feel nothing. And I also was a producer for this movie. I didn't have money, like 5 days before shooting, I didn't have nothing. But I was like, I didn't know like what to do, like how to, I tried everything to get some money to, you know, to get on the set and to be able to do that. But like, it's very funny story. Like I just, it was like a couple days before shooting, and I was like, but what can I do? Like, and I found some like videos on YouTube, like some mantras, how to, you know, in your mind to attract money. And I did. I was like, this is the only thing I can do. I mean, I did everything, you know, before and nothing. And when I was doing that, like over and over, like you know, money came. So maybe yes. So yeah.
Wow.
And your father had just died when you, or how long ago?
He died in May. It was like 27th. Mm-hmm. Yes, 2017, and I had that 40 days after his death that I was really like in a crazy time with my emotions and with other like stuff. You know, so many events, other kinds of events, and so many. Man, so you know, I was so like searching for myself as some, I don't know, love and of course peace on the end, and yes, those 40 days. After those 40 days, I sat down and I wrote like every day, like whole day, like, and I did it really quickly, like I don't know, like for maybe 10 days or something. I have a script. So yes, and this for this. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. And for the second feature, also I wrote it like really fast. Also, yeah.
But you haven't shot it yet.
No, not yet.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about it, so everyone can like speak a little bit about your future project, or in what are you working now? So.
Okay, with my first feature, I realized that I can make movies only about myself. I mean, I know that maybe perhaps it's like an egoistic thing or something, but I just find inspiration in my everyday life and in myself, you know, and I have like interesting days. I'm so vivid imaginations, and you know, and with my first feature, I just this is a formula. I said to write, you know, something that happened to me, because I know me the best, and I can go deep down, and I can show all, you know, and bad sides, and all feelings, I mean, and struggles and everything, problems that I have, or good things, or, you know, good emotions and everything, love. And second feature is about that, like, main theme is like a fatal love between, of course, me and my boyfriend that lasted for 20 years now, with, of course, some breaks in between. And it's how that love, like, in time changes, and how it changed us, and how we evaluated, like, in different ways, and it's full of passion, and like, we are like we changed a lot, like, yeah, I have 3 like parts on the movie, the movie from like in 2003 to 2005, our relationship, then from 2013 to 2017, something like that, and for 2021, like the third phase, yeah.
Yeah. Because we don't have endless time. Okay. So I want to read out 3 questions, and then you can answer it with your answer when you tell us about your next project. I hope that's okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so here is one question. Do you consider the languages you speak have an influence in your art? For example, moon in Spanish is feminine, in German it is masculine, in English it doesn't have a gender, and I think in Icelandic it's neutral. Do you think it has some impact in the way you tell stories? Okay, and then I have 2 more. And yes.
Let's keep with that, no?
Yeah, I'm just for example, put these 2, and
okay,
then
okay.
I will let you talk. And stop with questions, because we don't have a lot of time left. So 2 here, really quick. Do you believe our experience, your experience as a woman, affects the way you write, direct movies? And what is it like to be a woman in the filmmaking world?
Complex. But Uisenma, I think she could like definitely talk about because your movie has 2 different languages in one, and they are all the time mixing between each other. And I would perhaps like to start with you, and then everybody can.
Well, Mongolian and German language, I mean, it's very important for me to talk about language, but strangely, in filmmaking, it doesn't have any weight at all to me. So I realize when I make a movie that I'm absolutely on another level, because I really think unconsciously, I write unconsciously, I do everything without any way of thinking, because thinking to me is something that is really disturbing, because as you all are raised up to be a woman, but actually what is a woman? That is something absolutely, I cannot really define it. And I think as I got my child, I realized how strong I am. That was my experience. And then I did, don't look at me that way. With this new strength that I discovered, and you know, yesterday I was at the volcano. How do you say it?
Fagradalsfjall?
Yeah, and it's the same power that I experienced with the first birth, you know. And it's this very old power that comes from in myself, you know, from inside out. And that's the same, you know, so I think that's the power that I want to stick with while I'm doing my expressions. I don't know if I can say that is art or something, but I just do what I have to do, and I am, of course, very luxurious that I can sit down and that I can do it, you know, that I can write a book right now, you know, I finished my script. It's the first time that I, you know, approached to another book of someone, also a young writer, and now I had the chance to adapt it into a script, and yeah, that's something beautiful. And every time I just sit down and then I try to go away from all this kind of systemic thinking that I used to grow up with. Yes.
Does anyone want to add something? Like, I think we all do films in our languages, in our like mother tongue. Is anyone planning to, for example, do something in another language, or are you satisfied with sticking with your mother tongue? Or if you want to add something about this complex question about how it is to be a woman in this industry?
I think I want to say I'm so tired of speaking of what it's like to be a woman in the industry, and I think we also started like very well, like we talked about that. I think so. I think I said a lot about that in the beginning, and I used to be like also head of WIFT, which is Women in Film and Television, like the Icelandic department, and so, and also I've fronted a documentary festival, and I've always used all the opportunities that I had to raise awareness and somehow try to fight for this matter, because I think it has a lot to say about how you thrive, how other people look at you in the industry. Your gender has a lot to say, and unfortunately, and that's the way it is. And also I've experienced like, it's very male dominated, and you experience kind of alienation at times. And, but I'm just so tired of it, and I really don't want to talk more about it. Of course you can talk more about it, but I really want to talk about art and what we are creating and how we can make our experiences into stories and you know, all these, that's more important for me. Yeah. And regarding the music, for example, going straight to that, I think I don't like music so much in my films. I would like it as little as possible. And I feel often music is used to, it's brutal how it's used. I love music, but I think we need to be really careful with how we use it, and we need to let, like, emotions, you know, they have, what's happening on the screen has a value. We cannot always, you know, sometimes it's really nice to have a little help, but it's very delicate. And like the last film I made, a documentary, I tried to have music, but then at some point I just realized there wasn't going to be any music. It takes place, there's a lot of sounds there, like both from nature and machines and stuff. So I just tried to create like a world, and people actually talked a lot about it after watching the film, that the sound, it's you know, you have the sound, you have the what's going on, you know, it's different layers, and sound can be music, you know. Yeah, what was the other?
The language?
Yeah, the language, I don't know. It's just very difficult to make films in Icelandic because it's such a small community that speaks the language. So I think we've like fallen into the trap as a filmmaking community, using I mean, of course, you always have to use what you have to be noticed. And I mean, Icelanders have used landscape. We're like driving through beautiful landscape, you know. He's feeling something, he's driving through, he's thinking, he's driving through a landscape, you know, it's always like, so, but I think I love language, I love Icelandic, I love writing prose as well and stuff like that, but unfortunately writing a script is very much not a very creative thing in that sense. It's like no prose. I'm always trying to put in prose into the script, but yeah, yeah, it's just a very, I mean, such few people speak Icelandic, so I think me and all the rest, we somehow lean into other things to, you know, tell the story as well.
Well, your film actually doesn't have much work.
No, it doesn't.
But your new project, for example?
Too many.
And is it a documentary or a fiction?
It's a fiction.
Okay, so it's your first fiction.
It's my first fiction. And it actually arises from the frustration of being at home with a small child and having a partner who is successful in art. And that's where it comes from. And it's not a beautiful feeling. It's not a feeling that you're really proud of. You know, you're holding your child and it's crying and you're like, bastard, like, why is he going to all the film festivals? Like, I want to do something. I'm an actress. I want to be creative. Like, and I love you very much. But, you know, it's like it's very, you know, and and I think it's a very, and what I realized later on, this is the best. Like, this is where you should dive into all these ugly feelings or frustrations, or when I teach filmmaking, like documentary, I say, like, if students don't have an idea for a project, I say, like, what pisses you off the most? And take that and make something out of that, you know, like, that's where you should go.
Or even, what would you be, like, not afraid, but, you know, not willing to really reveal of yourself? Like, because that's a feeling, this feeling with your baby, I guess. It must feel in a way that, like, you also feel very guilty about it. It's not like you really accept the anger, to be angry. It's also mixed with guilty, so it's something that we definitely, like, don't let it out, you know? So that's also perhaps a good point to start writing, those things you don't really want to talk about.
Absolutely.
I think I'm realizing so many things by having this discussion. Just my last film, my first feature documentary, is in 5 languages, and my next one will be in several languages. And that's just not forced behavior. You know, it's just a part of me because I've lived abroad and traveled, and that's just a part of who I am and my experience. So of course I bring it into my creation.
And do you feel different? Because I have spoken with you in Spanish, and I already said you are very Latin. When you start speaking Spanish, you, like, completely shift. Do you feel a change, like, or even
I'm different when I speak French and Spanish. And
you feel different?
Yeah. In a way. I'm still always the same crazy person, but still, you know, you get some details that leads you into different emotions, and that's very rico. You know, it's very good
Rich,
to have. So yes, doesn't matter in which language. Of course, it can be more frustrating putting subtitles, but still, you know, it doesn't matter. Language is just flowing. Language is music also, and we use. I agree with Helga. We use music to milk emotions a bit, so we could be a bit more aware. But also, just music is just so powerful and high. You know, one of the highest. And I'm gonna make a documentary, another feature, and then a short fiction, and. Because you just inspired me so much, because you said, yeah, I'm strong, and, you know, that just not to be afraid to go into the manuscript, go into writing. It's very inspiring to hear you all speak.
Can I, sorry, just one very short. I was watching a series about Picasso, just one episode the other day, and I was like, I'm so bored with this guy, Picasso. I want the story of this woman, like the artist that he married later on. He had 2 children with her, I don't remember her name. And of course, fortunately, she got divorced and she moved to America. But her life and her emotions and her frustration and everything, that was the most interesting story for me in that TV show. And also, I've always thought, maybe also because I was married to, or not married, but, you know, Icelandic way of marrying, had a child, and you know, we do everything. You know, first you have a child, then you buy a flat, and then you marry. You know, and and I remember when I watched Lost in Translation, and we were together, and which is a great film and everything, but the scene that struck me the most is the scene where he's talking. His wife keeps calling because of some home decoration stuff, and she starts sending him faxes with a carpet or something for the house, and I was like, but her story, what's her story? Like, her story is interesting. Where is it? Like, it's not here. It's not on the big screen. It's somewhere, you know. And I felt I really connected to this woman behind the fax machine, and I was like, I want to see her story because that's my story, you know. And yeah, I think there are so many stories behind fax machines.
I actually realized that I am this woman now, sending the faxes. Except I'm not sending fax, I'm sending emails. It's because there's this new life that you live, which previously I had like 40-something years of just doing my own thing, being a filmmaker. But then all of a sudden you have a different role. And so the woman sending the faxes, I agree, that's a dramatic,
interesting story.
Yeah, exactly, as well. Because this other person gets to be in the world, whether they're working at a hospital or working in cinema, they're doing something that's important. And then, but when you're just working domestically, it's not considered to be important. But you have to make it important for yourself for that moment that you're.
It's also interesting.
Filling that role,
it's an interesting story, you know, and that's. I mean, we all know it's very important to work in kindergarten. It's like, oh, it's so important to work in kindergarten.
No, but
we
exactly.
all know that. But it's interesting.
Yeah, and
it's a good story.
Yeah, but it's also because the drama, the feeling that you've described before is this like, this kind of sprinkled with the frustration. That's where the drama comes from, which is. But I was going to jump in on what people were talking about before with the languages. When you're choosing a language to write it, I feel like the way Magnea becomes a different person depending on what language she speaks. It's also because these are just different cultures. If you feel like a movie that takes place in Paris or something, that it's going to sound and feel different. But for me, at least, the language comes from what the material requires. It's not like, oh, now I'm going to need to do something in this language. But in my film, and normally I had a few languages, but that's because the story requires, I have a refugee woman who speaks one language, that's one culture. You have this Icelandic kind of, how do you say, embættismenn? I can't remember embættismenn. Anyway, people who are working for, for the state or for the city, people who speak this kind of language and they follow rules.
Formal.
Yeah. That's their role in society. But yeah, and I agree with them. And Helga's mentioning, Icelandic is spoken by very few people, so it's a difficult market to be a part of. But if these are our stories that we're not forced to tell them, but my desire is to tell our local stories, regardless of the fact that. It's the tiniest, one of the smallest language markets and in the world. And yeah, for sales companies who are buying your film, it's always a bit of a drawback. And it is annoying to make a movie that you feel strongly about, but they're like, but it has subtitles. But that's where we are, that's where we're, and it's just something we deal with, and we're so used to it also as well.
Okay, well, so we need to finish, but before finishing, I would like each of you to perhaps, this was a question in the interview I did with you, if you had a time machine and you could go back to when you were starting on this, what would you say, or even to women who are starting in the filmmaking world, would you like to say something? As Helga said, which has been in my mind since yesterday, that you're allowed. I give you my permission. You can go ahead. Is there something you would like to say?
I mean, for me, maybe it would be, observe and document, at any point in our lives, how, regardless of how uninteresting we might find our moment, our current moment, wherever we are, it is interesting and it is material for something. And I would like to tell myself to observe and, document it all, and also that it, to not be afraid of the material not being interesting. It is interesting, and it is relevant, and it's material that people will want to see, and you'll want to see it later yourself. So,
Natalia?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I can say for everyone to believe in themselves, to be themselves, to find themselves, what they really are, and to have a courage and to be honest and to make very, powerful art. Yeah.
Uisenma?
Yeah, don't stress yourself. It's just so easy as it is, me as a 20-year-old girl or 22, there's nothing to be stressed about, Time, we cannot control time anyway, just use your time and just be cool and calm down, and don't get into the stress of this modern woman of I know what I want, stuff like that, It's so great to do not know what you want. Just dive into the unknown.
Magnea?
Yeah, I agree. Let go. Don't try to control everything. Trust the process, and don't be afraid. Who is going to judge you? Who is going to bite your head off? Just F it, because there are so many subjects that need to be discussed in our time of Me Too and racism and everything horrible that is happening also in this world. That we cannot forget the beauty. We have to focus on the beauty also, not the horrible things. But let's not be afraid to dive in and discuss and, tackle this thing, because we have to. If not, we just save it in ourselves and we get rotten in a way. We have to, as a society, to help each other out and just have voices. So as many different voices of age, gender and everything is very important. So I think just take your phone and film, make a documentary, make a film, whatever. Just don't be afraid to speak up.
Tack för det. Thank you. Thank you.